Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here. Today, we're going to talk about real-time analytics UX and how our approach to designing interfaces for security and observability teams has evolved this past year. I'm Laura, and this is Xenia, and we're two of the UX designers at OpenSearch. I focus my work on observability and our core dashboarding and data exploration experiences, while Xenia focuses her work on security analytics. Today, we're going to show you how we've transformed our UX approach for real-time analytics to develop a set of design patterns and principles that work across both observability and security analytics workflows. We're going to talk you through our process, starting with how we mapped common patterns between security analytics and observability use cases, then pivoted from anchoring our persona framework on a generalized producer and consumer roles to anchoring it on the core analysis workflows. We then created an information architecture navigation system for OpenSearch Dashboards that is better positioned to support these core workflows. We designed some UX patterns that address the common real-time analysis challenges and pain points, and we'll get into describing those in a little. And lastly, we're looking forward to unlock some future extensibility opportunities for the community, and we're excited to hear your feedback for how you might extend our approach. Thanks so much for being here, and we hope we can continue to evolve our approach together. I think that was it. Okay, so first, let's talk about real-time analytics. What is it, and why is the fact that it's near real-time so important to our user experience approach? Real-time analytics is the process of collecting, analyzing, and acting on data as it's generated to make informed decisions without delay. The key aspect is speed, enabling organizations to respond quickly to changing conditions. It differs from traditional analytics in that data is collected, processed, and analyzed as it's being generated within seconds or milliseconds of the events occurring. Traditional analytics or batch analytics is the approach most organizations have used for decades. In traditional analytics, data is collected over time, stored, and then analyzed periodically, perhaps daily, weekly, or monthly. Think of it as taking a snapshot of your business data at specific intervals and then studying those snapshots to identify patterns and insights. The analysis happens after the events occurred, giving you historical perspective, but with some time delay. Real-time analytics, by contrast, is the process of collecting, processing, and analyzing data as it's being generated. This approach provides immediate insights and allows for instant decision-making. Rather than waiting for scheduled reports, real-time analytics continuously monitors data streams and triggers alerts or actions when certain conditions are met. So let's take a quick look at some of the domains and practical applications for real-time analytics. Take a quick look at financial services just to kind of root the rest of our conversation. So financial institutions use real-time analytics to detect market manipulation patterns, like price tampering by analyzing data from multiple sources. They also use it to combat payment fraud and money laundering. Supply chain and logistics, real-time analytics help address inefficiencies in supply chains, which can be extremely costly. The complex ecosystem of multiple channels and participants, like vendors, manufacturers, benefit from immediate insights into operations and performance. Okay, so why is the fact that it's near real-time analysis is so important to the user experience approach? It's because end users face unique challenges with real-time interfaces. Let's talk through these. First, information overload and cognitive burden. End users, analysts often struggle with the sheer volume of information presented in real-time analytics interfaces. Their information's constantly updating dashboards create visual fatigue as analysts try to track multiple changing elements simultaneously. Important signals get buried among routine updates, making it difficult to distinguish what really requires attention. Some analysts will experience change blindness, where they miss significant shifts because too many elements are updating at once. And the cognitive load of monitoring multiple real-time metrics leads to decreased performance and decision quality over time. Another big one is context switching and interrupted focus. So real-time interfaces frequently demand attention through alerts and notifications. Continuous alerts interrupt deep work, reducing productivity and increasing errors. Users develop a notification numbness where they begin ignoring alerts entirely after too many interruptions. Context switching between analytical thinking and reactive response diminishes performance in both modes, and the pressure to respond immediately creates stress that impairs decision-making quality. For example, a network operations center analyst monitoring real-time security alerts might miss a genuine threat after being desensitized by numerous false positives throughout their shift. Comprehension, another one of the pain points is understanding time-based relationships, identifying patterns. So analysts often struggle to understand temporal patterns and the relationships in streaming data. So determining causality from correlation is difficult when events occur in rapid succession. Interpreting trends becomes challenging when the baseline's constantly shifting. And understanding seasonality or requires mental integration of patterns over time. Also, distinguishing between significant anomalies and normal variance requires contextual knowledge. There's also some challenges in navigation. So users struggle to pause the flow of information to examine points in time. Rewinding or reviewing historical context while maintaining awareness of the current state's difficult. Controls for filtering, highlighting, or focusing on specific elements must be simple yet powerful. And switching between different time granularities, like seconds, minutes, or hours, requires mental recalibration. For example, a system administrator trying to diagnose an ongoing performance issue might find it difficult to compare current metrics with historical baselines while events continue unfolding. Data interpretation without context is a common issue. So understanding whether a metric is good or bad requires contextual knowledge that the interfaces often fail to provide. Relative changes may be more important than absolute values, but many interfaces emphasize the latter. We also see, as I mentioned earlier, alert fatigue and threshold relevance, and time pressure and decision quality are compromised as well, or time pressure can compromise decision quality. So there's a sense that time is running out, which leads to rushed decisions. Users feel anxiety, or analysts feel anxiety when making decisions under observation in real-time systems. The availability of immediate data creates pressure for immediate action, even when reflection would be beneficial. Decision fatigue can set in quickly when users must make continuous judgments on streaming data. So we want to look, with real-time analytics, when we're thinking about our user experience, we really want to look at the pressure and the context that the analyst is functioning in. It's a high-pressure situation, and it's requires more like understanding a lot of different signals at the same time, a lot of information overload, and while you have ongoing alerts and notifications that you have to like triage and understand. Okay, so now that we have a good understanding of the unique challenges and pain points with real-time analytics, we set to map out the commonalities between security analytics and observability. Okay, so while they both involve monitoring and analyzing system data, observability focuses on understanding the internal state of systems through their outputs to ensure reliability, performance, and operational health, while security analytics focuses on identifying, investigating, and mitigating security threats and vulnerabilities. Its primary concern is protecting data and systems from malicious activity. The two disciplines also differ with the signals that they use, or the data types. So observability typically focuses on these three pillars: logs, which are detailed records of system events; metrics, which are quantitative measurements of system performance; and traces, which follow requests through distributed systems. While security analytics focuses on security logs and audit trails, network traffic analysis, endpoint telemetry, user behavior analytics, and threat intelligence feeds. the response actions are also different in some ways. So observability triggers responses focused on system optimization, performance improvement, resource allocation, while security analytics responses are focused on threat containment, attack mitigation, and security policy enforcement. Despite all these differences, there are a lot of similarities. So we took a close look at the journeys, personas, and workflows of both in security analytics and observability and saw a lot of overlap. We arrived at a solution creation journey that applies to both observability and security analytics. So in the initial planning phase, an architect will figure out what to monitor and how to access relevant data. Then during setup, a data custodian or an admin focuses on collecting, ingesting, and transforming data. They also implement and maintain security and access controls to the data. A SecOps, DevOps, or site reliability engineer will then set up the analytics tooling, like the dashboarding, along with monitoring. And after setup, we see our core end user flows. So this is when the core analyst flows. So this is when the analyst triages alerts, kicks off an investigation. During the investigation, they assess the impact and correlate signals to identify potential remediation paths, along with a root cause. At this point, the SecOps or DevOps or SRE might be called on to complete remediation and prevention measures. With this combined journey, we were able to challenge our persona framework and shift to a framework that anchored on the real-time analysis workflows. So previously, we had divided users into one of two roles, a producer or a consumer. A producer, the way that we defined a producer is someone who is creating assets, like creating visualizations or setting up monitors or setting up anomaly detectors, these configuring dashboards. So they are the people who are like setting up the system so that the consumers, those end users, can do their job. We found that this conceptualization was limited limited. It was very linear, and it focused kind of on this like discrete handoff. So with this understanding of like how we could map the journeys into kind of one sort of journey, we pivoted to focus on these shared workflows where we see three fundamental interaction points. So setup, which is that kind of enablement that you see that I talked about with the architect planning and the configuring access and setting up monitoring dashboards, like visualizations, those things. So that kind of like initial setup. Then we have this reactive workflow, which we call the 3 a.m. workflow. So that's that typical scenario where you hear engineer on call, middle of the night, tons of alarms, alerts going off, how they're sleepy and they're trying to figure out what's going on, trying to correlate these different signals, understand, assess the impact, how can they fix this as quickly as possible. But they're also not, like as I mentioned earlier, they have some of that like cognitive load, sleepiness that's impacting their ability to work and make high quality decisions. So that's our kind of like understanding of our 3 a.m. workflow. And then we have this other kind of workflow that we call our 3 p.m. workflow. It's more of like a cleanup the next day, or it's kind of proactive, but it's more like a cleanup of what happened yesterday and how can we monitor, how can we prevent this from happening in the future. So at this point, you're seeing some consumption, like what we would have considered things that happen in the consumption phase, but you're also seeing some production. So they're consuming dashboards, they're consuming visualizations, but they're also at the same time creating new monitors, perhaps adjusting thresholds, creating run books, and things like that to better prevent issues like that in the future. Okay, and Xenia is going to talk about some of the emerging design patterns that came out of this work.
Thank you, Laura. I'm Xenia. I'm also UX designer at OpenSearch. So I'm going to talk about the emerging design patterns that we are working on to address the challenges described by Laura previously. Our UX team is currently putting together a framework of UX patterns that support the unique needs of real-time analytics use cases. I'd like to show you some of the patterns we established so far. The list is far from exhaustive. So first, I'm going to start with guiding principles that we identified while learning about the unique challenges that observability and security analytics team are facing. Understanding the unique issues and pain points with real-time analytics led us to develop those heuristics or principles against which we evaluate our designs as we evolve our work. Our emerging design patterns evolved from these principles. Time to insight is paramount, especially in like 3 a.m. in the morning, you would assume that. Quickly extract meaningful information from complex data. That's the core of it. Maintain context while investigating. Preserve the user's mental model and investigation path. Enable pattern recognition. Help users identify trends, anomalies, and relationships. And I also would include here like some predictability of the interfaces that we are working towards developing. Ensure intelligence is actionable. AI should deliver insights that drive concrete actions. With the emerging AI suggestions, helpers, like assistants, it becomes ever more important. First UX pattern I'd like to talk about is the information architecture transformation that OpenSearch underwent last year. The new approach to navigation encompasses two principles. It's sectioned by user journey phases, and it's sections by use case, meaning introducing workspaces. We implemented workspaces that facilitate organizing our information architecture around teams rather than rigid roles. Workspaces provide curated experiences for each use case. By displaying only relevant features, organized by workflows we talked about as enablement, 3 p.m. and 3 a.m. workflows. We talked about that in the first part of the presentation. This approach acknowledges that same user may have different needs at different times. So as you can see on like this very basic diagram, like if you're within observability team, you would see relevant navigation features within the nav. And previously we had like a very long flat list of whatever was available. And user would need to kind of maintain their workflow manually in this case. So I'm going to go into a little bit more detail on this pattern. So this is before. You can probably see it quite clearly. So before, navigation organized by technical functions. All available features are surfaced as long, ever-growing list of plugins, reflecting the technical structure of a product and even like GitHub repo of those patterns. Separate paths for producers and consumers. Admin controls are separated in the admin section, and it kind of signifies that those are only available for basically admins. Disconnected workflows across security and observability. Observability and security analytics features are organized within their own categories as flat list, siloed from the rest of the product. But the real-time, like real-life workflows, they don't just use the like observability-specific features. It's like the whole functionality that is relevant at the moment is important. Let's contrast and compare with after. It's also evolving and also changing over time, but the principle, the new paradigm is there. Enters new approach, workspaces-centered navigation. So what we have here is unified by team context and common goals. Each workspace includes the features relevant for specific teams. I have observability and security analytics side by side here, so you can see them together. Navigation based on user objectives. The sectioning within each workspace navigation is based on the workflows we talked about previously, like 3 a.m. experiences in one group and 3 p.m. experiences in a different group. And user would navigate between them and clearly see like what is the next step for them. Connected workflows that support both security and observability needs. The core OpenSearch experiences, like Discover and Dashboards, are shared across workspaces for similar workflows, with slight variation in placement to better adjust to the needs of observability and security analytics users. So they could be found in consistent places wherever it's relevant for specific team workflows. The second pattern focuses on integrating testing capabilities directly into detector configuration workflows. There are multiple detectors across both use cases, and this is part of our FreePM, mostly FreePM kind of setup and constant fine-tuning of the system. We are aiming to streamline the process of creating and refining detector configurations. The testing workflow consists of several key components. Initial configuration, user-defined detector parameters within the configuration interface, like creation flow. Sample data selection. User uses the test batch of data to kind of prove the hypothesis that this detector would produce meaningful results. So we are balancing here between meaningful results and quick execution of the test. Immediate testing, when it's available, is crucial for detection capabilities to generate results within seconds. We introduce inline testing loop, and that's existing pattern, which we formalized and reuse for multiple detectors. Interactive visualization is generated within seconds if it's appropriate for this type of detector and provides insight. Like user can see trends, they can see performance of the detector immediately and make changes and fine-tune. So users can iterate through fine-tuning testing cycle, adjusting parameters and immediately seeing their impact until they achieve the desired detection accuracy. Once satisfied with the results, they can save the validated configuration with confidence that it's been properly tuned for their specific use case. So this is a variation of this pattern that is applicable for longer testing cycles. Some detector types, particularly those involving complex algorithms or large data sets, require significant processing time, maybe in minutes, to initialize and generate results. For these cases, we've implemented an asynchronous testing cycle to maintain a smooth user experience. Here, how the process works. The user submits the initial set of detection parameters within configure flow. Users can review the detail. The test cycle, is launched in the background, allowing users to continue their work. Once the test results are ready, user can review detailed test output, including performance metrics and detections patterns. Based on these results, user can fine-tune parameters and initiate new test cycle. This iterative process continues until the detector's performance meets the desired optimization criteria. This asynchronous approach, in terms of user experience, prevents long loading times from blocking the user interface, while ensuring through detector validation and optimization. The third pattern, you can see here, addresses a critical workflow challenge, fragmented investigation experience that disrupt analyst focus, which is very important during rushed time of 3 a.m. Workflow. Previously, when investigating a signal, users encountered a disjoint process that repeatedly broke their focus. They were forced to navigate away from their current context, launch Discover or any other required experience through the main menu navigation. So you can see it here, they select different experience, they go to a different window. The context switching not only created significant operational inefficiencies, but also increased the risk of important investigation details being overlooked or lost in transition, because user will need to recreate the full context while querying. By integrating contextual investigation capabilities directly within the signal analysis workflow, we eliminated, hopefully, these distractions, and I'm going to show you the after pattern. So what happens here is The new pattern introduces pivoting to secondary experience that might be query experience to gain more context on a signal. In this example, it's query in Discover, pre-filled with the context of the investigation. This allows to maintain the context during the investigation to be able to work faster and more efficiently. Also, the quality of decision-making is increasing with this approach. This is crucial for 3 a.m. workflow when analysts need to achieve meaningful results in a timely manner. Something we haven't addressed previously is a sequence of steps to contextualize and respond to an event. It could be either observability, root cause investigation, or security alert. When time to insight is critical, users look for meaningful next steps to progress through large volumes of information. The new pattern is a UI framework that presents information about an alert or incident sectioned in tabs, showing relevant bits to lead analysts through contextualization, prioritization, and verification of a root cause to the resolution of the issue. This also allows for pattern recognition when the same information or similar category of information is presented in the same place. So user would expect specific details to be placed in the cohesive manner. Okay, that's it from my side. Back to Laura. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm just going to do a quick rundown of what we just talked about. So just a quick summary. Real-time analytics poses unique user interface challenges as compared to traditional analytics. The OpenSearch UX team is in the process of putting together a framework of UX patterns that support these unique needs of real-time analytics use cases. To arrive at the framework, we challenged our simplified model of personas that divided users into one of two roles, a producer or a consumer. We pivoted to focus on shared workflows where we see three fundamental interaction points: setup, a reactive workflow, like the 3 a.m. workflow, and a more proactive workflow, like the 3 p.m. workflow, where SecOps, DevOps, and SREs are concluding their investigations with root cause analysis and creating new monitors, visualization, dashboards, and runbooks to better prevent similar issues in the future. Our emerging design patterns are focused on relieving the pain points we've observed, including context switching and fractured workflows, information overload and cognitive burden, comprehension of time-based relationships, like pattern recognition and correlating signals, alert fatigue and threshold relevance, and time pressure around quality decisions. The patterns that we developed range from navigational patterns that align with phases of the user journey and use cases rather than reflecting the OpenSearch organizational structure, and streamlining the setup, investigation, and incident response workflows through improved contextual awareness. We see more opportunities here and hope to hear from the community on how this framework might be extended. So opportunities for extensibility, you tell us. Thank you. That's it.
Wow, that was very efficient. That you were allocated 40 minutes and you did it in 20. So maybe we have some questions and some discussion. And I don't know if you're set up to do any demos. Probably not. Okay, but that's really interesting stuff. It's nice to see. And I know when I first got to OpenSearch, I thought these dashboards don't make any sense. How are you supposed to use them? And that's exactly the question that you've answered. So questions, please. Dagny.
Is there going to be an RFC on GitHub where I can see these new designs and give feedback?
Absolutely.
Cool. When do you think that'll be put up, just so folks can look for it?
In the next 2 weeks. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks.
Version 3, can we expect these changes in version 3? Or
The microphone didn't hear you.
hello, all these changes you are talking about, are those coming in version 3 of the OpenSearch, or? Not all of them.
Most of them.
Okay.
Like further down
The release. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
More questions? Yes.
is there any place that we can follow up the new things, like only in the OpenSearch blog, or do you publish it, or do you publish the progress, or only when it's completed, something like that to follow up?
I think the RFC that Dagny was mentioning will help with that, visibility. Thanks for your question. That was great. So is there anywhere where you can see the progress of our work? Yes, I think the RFC that Dagny mentioned would allow us to give you updates on what we're working on and where we're at and collect additional feedback. Yeah.
And then I also think the I was just going to yell. Trying to give you a workout. I also think the broader OpenSearch roadmap will have these things tagged to it, and then like that kind of answers the release, like which release you can expect what innovation to be added. Just follow along on that roadmap, and we should be linking things to the appropriate release cycle.
Okay, so there was a UX proposal, I believe, last year for forecasting that includes some of those patterns that we talked about, and it's pretty extensive with a lot of like screens in more detail. So also like comments are welcome there.
So will the user security changes be backported to the previous versions as well, like for the dashboards? Like to 2.x?
Related to the...
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
The dashboards, the user security for the dashboards? Yeah, will they be backported to the previous versions? Because at this moment we don't have like fine-grained access on the on particular menu items that we want to give access to the users.
Maybe let's connect after, just so I can understand the details.
I think that's a different aspect. That's about the permissions on.
Security, yeah. So I think the question might be related to a specific, like I know there's some gaps in a specific version of some of the fine-grained access controls. So broadly, yes, we should, if there's any areas of gaps, we will backport those to close them. But then I think I'm assuming what you're talking about, but let's connect after and make sure I'm covering the details.